Just as a disclaimer, we want you to know that some of the movies that we will be reviewing were shot in a different time and era where people of race and sex were not treated equally. We understand this and hope you do too. The movies or anything that happened on the sets are not the views of this podcast or what this show is intended to be all about.
Exactly. And we want to give due diligence in presenting the movie and not the views of the cast or directors or anyone involved. But we also feel it's necessary to let the audience know some of the background information to get a feel for what was happening at the time of shooting the film. Again, we hope you understand that we do not agree with everything that went on, and we just want to give out the information. And with that being said, hope you enjoy the show.
These 6 individuals have made a choice to work, a choice to sacrifice, put themselves on the line, represent you, this high school. This is your team.
Hoosiers. They needed a second chance to finish first.
Welcome, ladies and gentlemen, to the championship game.
You're not the new coach.
Are you expecting somebody different?
Younger.
Most incredible and improbable confrontation. Well, those of you who don't know, my name is Norman Dale. I coached college ball for 10 years, but it's been 12 years since I've blown this. In the illustrious history of the Indiana High School basketball tournament.
That's a hell of a team you had there.
You knew that team?
I know everything there is to know about the greatest game ever invented.
With a pint size hardly big enough for 3 syllables, Hickory Huskers, enrollment 64.
Out of here, right now. You kicking me out? Yes. Don't come back until you learn to keep your mouth shut and listen.
Take on the defending state champions, the Mighty Bears of South Bend Central.
Run you off the boards. You got to squeeze them back in the paint. Make them chuck it from the cheap seats.
Already calling this the game of the century.
I've seen them, the real sad ones. They sit around the rest of their lives talking about the glory days.
News people from all over the Midwest are here to witness Hoosierland's version of the Cinderella story.
It's got to work out this time. That's it for good.
The starting lineup for the Huskers.
Well, my boys only know basketball, farming, and school.
A basketball hero around here is treated like a god.
You know, most people would kill to be treated like a god just for a few moments.
Forget about the crowds, the size of the school, their fancy uniforms, and remember what got you here. If you put your effort and concentration into playing to your potential, to be the best that you can be, I don't care what the scoreboard says at the end of the game, in my book, we're going to be winners.
Let's win this and for all the small schools who never had a chance to get here. I love you guys.
Gene Hackman, Barbara Hershey, Dennis Hopper. Hoosiers. They needed a second chance to finish first.
All right, guys, welcome back to the Tragedy of Cinema, episode 22, where we'll be discussing the famous movie Hoosiers. I'm your host, Jimbo, and today I have a special guest in studio with me. Guest, would you like to introduce yourself?
Hi, this is Eric. Nice to see you, Jimbo. Thanks for having me on.
Yeah, Eric is a former high school friend of mine. We haven't really seen each other in 25 years, save for one time about a month ago where he had listened to the podcast and wanted to reach out. So we've since rekindled, and we've been talking a lot these last couple of weeks. So, Eric, it's good to have you here.
Thank you.
A lot of people may not know what Hoosiers is. What would you say a Hoosier is? Basically, a Hoosier is a person from Indiana or somebody that lives here.
Right. It's a dubbed name given to all. We don't call ourselves Indianans. We call ourselves Hoosiers.
Right. So, but before we get too much into further, of course, he's filling in for Terrence since Terrence doesn't really do sports movies. There'll be a couple he'll sit in on, but We're going to throw the ever-famous question to
All
Mr.
right.
Eric Cummings. So, Eric, my question for you today, and you have no knowledge of what I'm going to ask you.
I do not.
Why don't you go ahead and give me your top 5 favorite sports movies of all time?
Top 5 sports movies. Well,
And then on top of that, after that, I want you to answer your top 3 favorite basketball players of all time.
Okay.
That was probably easier for you.
Probably a little bit easier. I would say top 5 sports movies. Well, 2 of them were written and directed by the same guys. We're going to touch on that later, but Hoosiers, obviously, and this is that's a good one. Rudy would probably be one of my second. Field of Dreams, great baseball movie. That was probably my third. I got to come up with 5. It's really difficult.
You had Remember the Titans or Eight
That
Men
was a good
Out.
one.
The Pride of the Yankees. You haven't watched it yet, but
I
you
did
need
like
to.
that. Glory Road, which is another probably lesser known basketball movie.
Varsity Blues.
Yeah. So
Major League.
I think we got 5 there. Yeah, Major League's great. That's always a good watch for a laugh.
Right. All right. So go ahead and give me your top 3 favorite basketball players of all time.
Okay. Well, they all played in the same era,
Which was the best era in my opinion.
right. We talked about this on Facebook a little bit the other day. Probably Jordan. I think he takes precedence just by nature of his winning and just all aspects of how he brought notoriety to the game. So I think he stands alone still. Probably Larry Bird. I favor him obviously because he's from the state of Indiana. And then I got to say he's largely underrated, but I think Kareem Abdul-Jabbar is really up there near the top in the basketball world for sure.
Right. So there you go. Now you feel how Terrence. Eric was a little intimidated coming on the podcast because he didn't know how he was going to replace the golden pipes of Terrence.
Yeah,
So
big shoes to fill. So.
big shoes to fill, Terrence. So he's a fan of yours and your voice. So let's go ahead and just jump right into this. Eric's actually going to take over for Terrence. He's actually going to run through the technical aspects, the awards, and all that. So we're going to go ahead and give it to him, let him run with it. Go ahead, Eric. Take it away.
Okay, Hoosiers. The release date was February 27th, 1987. It had an estimated budget of $6 million.
This is the conversion.
Is the conversion rate. Yeah, $14 million in today's dollars, and it grossed $28.6 million, and that would be $66.8 million in today's money. So I think it did very well, despite Gene Hackman not thinking so highly of it. But it was directed by David Anspaugh and Angelo Pizzo. I'm not for sure how to pronounce his last name. The technical aspects, the runtime was 1 hour and 54 minutes, so that'd be 114 minutes. The sound mix was Dolby SR, and again, you'll have to forgive me because I'm not familiar at all with these technical aspects, but we'll plow through them. Color was CFI color, and the aspect ratio was 1.85 to 1. And the camera was a camera Airflex camera and lenses. And the laboratory was Consolidated Films Industries, CFI in Hollywood, California. The film length was 3,112 meters, and the negative format was 35 millimeters. The cinematographic process was spherical. Printed film format was 35 millimeters. And
you made it through that. The cinematography. A lot of people.
That's a big word.
A lot of people mess up on that, but I think you got that one right.
Yeah, well, I had to practice a little. So the awards category, we moved on to the most important at the top of the list, the Academy Awards in USA 1987. They were nominees for Oscar for Best Actor in a Supporting Role, which was Dennis Hopper. He's great in this movie, by the way.
Fantastic.
Best music was original score by Jerry Goldsmith. And the Golden Globes, USA 1987, they were a nominee for the Golden Globe for Best Performance by an Actor in a Supporting Role in a Motion Picture. That, once again, was Dennis Hopper. American Cinema Editors, USA 1987, they were a nominee for the Eddie, the Best Edited Feature Film, Carol Timothy O'Meara, and Film Independent Spirit Awards 1987. They were a nominee for an Independent Spirit Award, the Best First Feature for David Anspaugh, the director, John Daly, the producer, Carter DeHaven, producer, Derek Gibson, producer, and Angelo Pizzo, producer. Heartland Film Festival, 1996. They were a winner of the Special Achievement Award for David Anspall and Angelo Pizzo. And National Film Preservation Board USA 2001, they were a winner for the National Film Registry.
So as you can see, there was a lot of recognition for this movie, and it wasn't just for its basketball. It was more about the story it told, which we'll get into a little bit here in a little bit. So go ahead and give us the synopsis.
The synopsis is a coach with a shaky past and the town drunk who loves basketball lead a small Indiana high school basketball team to the finals in 1954.
And what most people don't know about this movie is it's actually based on a true story, which we'll touch on here in a minute. But first, let's hit the cast. The cast had a solid cast. Gene Hackman as Coach Norman Dell, Barbara Hershey as Myra Fleener, Dennis Hopper as Shooter Flatch, Sheb Woolley as Cletus Summers, Maris Valenius as Jimmy Chitwood, which was probably one of my favorites in the movie besides Ollie, David Nydorf as Everett Flatch, Brad Long as Buddy Walker, Steve Holler as Raid Butcher, Brad Boyle as Whit Butcher, Wade Schneck as Ollie McClellan, Kent Poole as Merle Webb, Scott Summers as Strap Pearl, Fern Parsons as Opal Fleener, and Chelsea Ross as George Walker. Now, I haven't done this the last couple of episodes, but I wanted to make sure I actually touched on this for this episode. I chose Dennis Hopper to do a little short biography on him and his career because he is fantastic in this movie, and he's a Hollywood legend. So he was born on May 17th, 1936 in Dodge City, Kansas. He died May 29, 2010 in Venice Beach, California from prostate cancer. His career spanned over 50 years.
That's a long time.
That's a long time. His famous acting and directorial roles in Easy Rider, True Grit, Hang 'em High, Speed, Waterworld, which is underrated in my opinion. I loved him in that. True Romance, yes, Super Mario Brothers, and Apocalypse Now, among many others. What most people don't know is he was a skilled photographer and a painter and has had several works of his in different galleries around the world.
Wow, that's interesting.
He stated that James Dean was the best actor he had ever worked with.
On James Dean, I'll give you a little sidebar.
Bring it
here. On. James Dean actually, he was a player on an obviously he's from Indiana, but he actually played against Milan back in the 50s. He was a high school basketball player.
Do you know where he went to high school?
I do not remember the name of the school he went to because a lot of those schools aren't in existence anymore.
Right.
But, yeah, that was an interesting fact just reading up about the movie that I discovered. You probably discovered it also.
Nice. And here are some famous quotes from him. There are moments that I've had some real brilliance, but I think they are moments. And sometimes in a career, moments are enough. I never felt I played the great part. I never felt that I directed a great movie. And I can't say that's anybody's fault but my own. So the way he thought of himself, he didn't think he had great moments or great parts. He just had great moments. This one was really funny. He said, I made a picture called Super Mario Brothers in 1993. And my 6-year-old son at the time, now he's 18, he said, Dad, I think you're probably a pretty good actor, but why did you play that terrible guy King Koopa in Super Mario Brothers? And I said, well, Henry, I did that so you could have shoes. And he said, Dad, I don't need shoes that bad.
Wow. Kid wasn't a fan, was he?
No, I guess not. And then the last one he said is, work is fun to me. All these years of being an actor and a director and not being able to get a job, 2 weeks is too long to not know what my next job will be.
Wow.
So his work ethic was pretty much out there. So
that's pretty good.
Now we're going to move into the actual movie. The way we're going to do this is just like if you listen to the last episode of The Pride of the Yankees, it's just going to be an off the cuff, talking back and forth, kind of work our way through the movie. This movie was filmed in Indiana, a lot of it. My aunt and uncle, Uncle Ronnie and Aunt Peggy, actually used to live on the road that the general store scenes were filmed on.
Okay.
So when we go up there to visit, we could drive down the road and go see where it was filmed. So
wow.
It's pretty cool. We could actually go up there one day if you want.
Yeah.
So just before we start, one thing I want to say is the music in this is fantastic.
Right.
The
opening scene.
The Hoosiers theme or whatever. Yeah. And you see it like when they're going on their bus trips and their rides and everything. Just that music gets you pumped up, I mean. Sure. They're on that winning streak and you're like, yeah, this is great.
Sure.
Actually, I have the record over here somewhere, the actual record. So
nice.
So you go ahead and take it away. We'll go ahead and start and
Okay. I don't know where you want to start.
We'll just start with the movie, and we'll just work our way through and talk about
I've
stuff.
got a lot of facts, I guess. Some side.
Do you want to talk about
notes?
the actual basketball team first? The story that's based on?
We can start with the movies.
Okay.
It more relates. I have two categories really, as it pertains to the actual movie. Like, the writer David Anspaugh and Angelo Pizzo were actually college roommates at IU, and so that's how they came to know each other. And obviously, writing the movie, they patterned Coach Norman Dale's character largely was based on Bob Knight, the legendary coach. And if you think about this time period in 1986, this was like at the zenith, the peak of Bobby Knight's, I guess you could call it celebrity winning. Right. He was, really almost like a god, small g, obviously, in the state of Indiana, and he was everything. So they based a lot of their characterizations of Norman Dale off of Bob Knight, and I just think it's interesting that life imitated art, and they would have never known this when they wrote the movie, but how the backstory with Norman Dale was that he had an altercation with a student athlete and actually punched him after a game. It got physical, and he alludes to that in the movie, and then he kind of goes away and is in the Navy for several years, and then I'm assuming it was an old friend who had called him back to be a high school coach at an obscure small town. And calls him back and gives him a job, really kind of doing him a solid and getting him back into the coaching profession. And so I just think that's interesting how that parallels the life of Bob Knight, who was actually fired by Miles Brand for an altercation. Well, it was actually started with a video that surfaced of him choking Neil Reed in a practice, who was one of his players, who then was subsequently put on a no tolerance policy for the incident and under Miles Brand, and then of course broke the zero tolerance policy by when a kid came up to him and said, "Hey, what's up, Knight?" And he viewed that as an act of disrespect, and then kind of grabbed the kid by the arm and wanted to kind of teach him a lesson, and then ended up getting fired because of that whole situation.
Yeah. By the way, I found it right here. Dennis Hopper appeared in Rebel Without a Cause in 1955 and Giant in 1956 with James Dean, who was a native Hoosier who played for Fairmount, which was an Indiana high school basketball team in the late 1940s. Fairmount. Yep. So
that's good to know.
This movie also features Dennis Hopper's only Oscar-nominated performance, which I find that odd because he's such a tremendous actor. And you're going to hear, I'm going to put this audio in right here with Dennis Hopper talking about the movie Hoosiers. So give this a listen.
It's just a wonderful story. I have a son that plays in the basketball, on the basketball team, and I'm the sort of the town drunk. It's a very, very moving part. It's a part that I got nominated for an Academy Award for. The only time that I was ever nominated as an actor. It's about a coach who comes back to this small town who's been banned from basketball because he hit one of his players. They went to the state championship in Indiana, which is a very big thing in high school, and they beat the big professional, the guys that were going to become professional basketball players. Big O, Oscar Robinson, who was a professional who played in the final game against them, said he came on the set while we were shooting, and he said, in my professional career, every time we were we had a big underdog against us, I always thought of these little white termites that were so small we couldn't even find them. They just ran all around us and whipped us. So I never forgot that game. I mean, Hoosiers had it. David Anspaugh, the director, and Angelo Pizzo wrote the screenplay, and they both went to the University of Indiana. They were both big fans of Bob Knight, who was the coach there, basketball coach there. And this was a true story. This story, actually, James Dean played against this team in Hoosiers, which was, I found out in 1951. it's just inspirational. I mean, I have so many coaches come to me and so many players and say, professional teams, that when they get down on the plane, the coach puts it in and they're all watching Hoosiers suddenly. So, and it's the first time in my career, because I play so many villains, that little kids came up to me and called me coach. Gene Hackman is wonderful in that. And all the kids, none of the kids had ever acted before. So Gene spent an awful lot of time with them and really worked hard with them. But we'd sit over on the side, and Gene would say to me, this movie, what are we doing in this movie? How crazy is this? No basketball movie has ever made any money. He said, college, professional, nothing. And we're doing a high school basketball team? We should have our heads examined. And he said, why don't they shoot the money? Come over here and shoot the money. They're always shooting those kids playing basketball. But he was very funny. And then he'd go and just work his buns off helping them.
All right, so as you can see right there, he had some words about talking about Gene Hackman and stuff. So one thing that always struck me as interesting is that when I was doing this research for this movie, Gene Hackman didn't want anything to do with this movie.
No.
I can't find a single interview, audio, video, anything that he wanted to do this movie.
Right. Was reading an article the other day. It was talking about, I guess there is a scene in the movie where him and Shooter on the bench, and they're talking to each other, and they're kind of laughing and bantering.
Yeah, I have that right here.
Right, and they're talking about, this is going to sink our careers, both of us. You know that, right? And they kind of laugh about it in the moment. But
yeah, the actual quote is, they found out years later. Here's the actual quote. It says, "Hopper, I hope you're invested well, because you and I are never going to work after this movie. This is a career-ending film for both of us."
Right. That gives you an indication of what he thought the movie was going to do. Right. And I think even in the clip you just played, Hopper talks about how they had a conversation about how Gene Hackman thought that no one even watches sports movies about professional teams or college teams, let alone who's going to care about a high school basketball team, an obscure story. But obviously it did very well. Right. And some other things is that he would the director was really excited to work with Gene Hackman. But he's like, I've heard all these fun things about him. This is going to be a great movie. And then Gene just came in, and his attitude was terrible, and just causing problems on the set. Mm-hmm. And he's like, didn't want to be there, and all this stuff. But then once they thought they were going to have to call him back in to redo some audio for the movie, that Gene Hackman said, I was like, man, how did you put this together? Basically, because he was amazed that actually got through. So. Yeah. So if we go back to the movie for a minute, so here we have Gene Hackman coming into the town, Coach Normandale. One of the interesting things to me is that when, he goes in, the lady thinks that he's supposed to be younger. So when he goes into practice, there's one of the town's guys, and they're already in there running the practice. And he's like, what are you doing? Mm-hmm. He's like, oh, yeah, we're running practice. I figured we'll do some scrimmage and all this. And he's like, yeah. He's like, you're not coaching anymore. He's like, and by the way, go ahead and leave. You know what I mean? And the kids were like, what? And they're sitting there, and so he kicks everybody out. And so Normandale's there, and he starts talking to the kids, and he's like, and then you have those two kids that start whispering and giggling. He's like, you got something to say? Let's say it. He's like, yeah, I just want to know when we're going to shoot or whatever. He's like, out, both of you out. So he kicks them out of practice, kicks them off the team. He's like, if you change your mind, come talk to me. Right. And I just thought that was set the tone for the entire movie, because he's like, this is my team. Everything that before you're out. And then you start seeing them going through the practice. I know me and you were on the same high school basketball team and running them suicide drills and, dribbling drills. And that's what he put them through. He just put them through, the fundamentals of the game.
Right.
Sure.
He said, anybody can shoot the ball. He's like, but we're not going to be tired on the court. We're going to give everything we have, and we're not going to be the ones that are tired on this.
Yeah, they couldn't be. They only had 6 players.
Right. And, 5.5, as the one guy says, because Ollie. So I just thought that was really cool, how they transitioned to that. And then, the one guy comes back, the guy brings his son back in. He's like, Coach, I'm really sorry. I'd be appreciative if I can be back on the team. He's like, well, we still got an hour of practice. Go get dressed. And then the dad's like, these guys bothering you? And he's like, yeah. He's like, all right, guys, you heard him. Get out. And he kicks them all out.
That actually was an interesting note that I wrote down that might have been taken from the actual coach of Marvin Wood. He really, that was one of the things in the bio that I read, that he closed practices to the outside, community, which really rubbed people the wrong way. Even in the community back in Milan, I think they just took that idea and then they obviously transported it to the movie, which makes it really neat.
Right, and being from such a small town, there's really not much to do. You know what I mean? There's a bunch of farmland.
No, there's 1,100 people in the whole town.
And the high school basketball team, they rally around them people.
Absolutely.
You know what I mean? So that was all part of their life. So you start getting the movie, and you come to find out that there's a really great player named Jimmy Chitwood in this movie, which in real life, his name's
Bobby Plump.
Bobby Plump,
yeah.
Right. So they're all like, well, we're not going to win anyway because Jimmy's not here, you know what I mean? But what you see in the movie is you see him just peeking around corners, you know, watching the practices, and you hear him, people talking, you see him in the crowd, you know, and one of my favorite scenes in this movie is like it's one of their first games, and they only have 6 players. 6 players. So one guy fouls out, right? And so then another guy fouls out, one guy fouls out, and the one guy, there was a rule that he put into place that you have to pass the ball 4 times to look for the good shot, right? Before you
disobeyed the rules.
So he goes in there, and they're just getting demolished. So after halftime comes out, he's like, he comes out and he starts just shooting, you know, making buckets like after just one pass, or just dribbling up the floor and shooting. So then, you know, the one guy fouls out, or the coach takes him out of the game.
Mm-hmm.
And then he's
sets
him down and put the other guy in. So the other guy one of the guys fouls out. And next thing you see that guy rip off his jersey. He's like 2-4, check it into the game or whatever.
Right.
And the coach is like,
sit down.
What are you doing? He's like, going in the game.
And then the
he's
ref
like,
comes over.
Sit down. And he goes, what? He's like,
my team's
sit
on
down.
The court. Yeah, my team's
he
on
goes,
the court.
Coach, you got 4. You need 1 more. He's like, my team is on the floor.
Yeah.
You know, and he's like, oh, okay. And, you know, and I think that from that point on that they found out what kind of coach they were dealing with. You know what I mean? You're going to listen to me. You're going to do it my way, or it's the showers. Yeah. And you can see it when they go back into the locker room after that scene. Obviously, Ray's upset. You know, he's like throwing stuff. And then coach comes down there and he says, you better think long and hard. You got all weekend. If you want to be on this team, you know, we got practice Monday. If not, then I suggest you don't play. And so one of the guys states, I can't remember which one, but he states, you know, hey guys, maybe he's right. Let's think about it. You know what I mean? So they all get together. And I just thought from that point forward that they really gelled as a team.
Right.
So Coach Normandale, he's heard all this thing about Jimmy Chitwood, right? And so the one lady's like, just stay away from him. I don't want you anywhere near him. You know, I look after him. And one of the most scenes for me, iconic scenes, is he goes and Jimmy's outside and he's shooting. Like in most Indiana, those that you don't know, basketball is huge here, and there's usually a basketball goalpost somewhere on the property of every person.
Right.
And this is just an old dirt court,
right.
And this one little basketball goal, and Jimmy's sitting there and he's just shooting, and Norman's talking to him, and he's just passing the ball back for him. And you know, he only missed 1 shot that entire time.
Yeah, that was a point that I was going to bring up. I mean, they did a few camera angles, close-ups on him shooting, but most of it was a wide shot, and that's something that we picked up on even as little kids. Like, man, Jimmy only missed 1 shot, and it was the last shot before Coach walked away.
Well, because what Coach tells him, and I thought that was iconic, because the last thing he grabs the ball and he says, look, he says, I don't care if you play for me or not.
Right.
And he threw the ball back to him, then he misses the shot. And I was like, man. But actually, he only missed 3 shots the entire movie.
Yeah. He only had 3 lines the entire movie.
Right. And one of them, and we're getting ready to talk about one of them. So basically, you know, they're losing games, whatever. Well, it's uncovered about his controversy with the choking, or that lady digs up information. She got it sent to her.
Right.
And so they're having this town hall meeting where they decided that they're going to basically vote to fire him. And I love this scene because, you know, the lady gets up there to read. She's got the note in her hand, and she's like, well, you know, she gets up there. She says, I think it'd be a mistake. You'd think she's getting ready to blow his cover. She says, I think it'd be a mistake to let him go. So they take a vote, and they're like, the noes have it or whatever. Well, in the meantime, Jimmy walks in, and he walks past. Jimmy, what are you doing here? So he walks into the church or whatever where they're at, and he's like, he goes up there and he whispers something. He's like, I got something to say. So he gets up there in front of everybody, and he's like, look, he said, I figure it's about time for me to start playing some basketball. And everybody, we knew it if we got rid of this coach.
Immediately changes the attitude of everybody.
They're like, we knew if we got rid of this coach that he would come play for us, right? And he's like, I got one condition. Says, he goes, I go. he stays, I play.
That's one of his three
And then
lines.
he just walks out, right? So, and Norman Dell said, they're like, oh, what just happened, Well, and then the guy's like, well, we already voted. Like, we demand a revote, you know what I mean? So it just totally changed the thing. Well, then they start going on this winning streak. And somewhere in between all this, we get introduced to Dennis Hopper, which I think is probably the best actor in this movie, the role that he played. What most people don't realize is Dennis Hopper just came off of out of rehab for actually being an alcoholic. So that was one of the reasons he didn't really want to play this part. But he knew that he could do it justice. He didn't feel comfortable doing it, but he knew he could do it. So one thing I found that if you remember him walking out onto the field, the drunk in the middle of the game, remember?
Right, yeah.
Because he was a great basketball mind. He knew all the plays and everything. But
he knows everything there is to know about the greatest game ever invented was his line.
Right.
Yeah, that's a great
right.
line.
It's a great line. So when he goes, he told the director, he's like, hey, I want a 10-second notice before you call action, before we start. And so the director would give him the cue, and he would spin around 10 times to get the drunk release. So when you see him staggering onto the field, he's actually really
I think he actually got that from James
right,
Dean.
He did, right here.
That's how he
said
to be drunk.
he remembered James Dean doing the same thing on Giant in 1956. He asked George Stevens for 30 seconds. So he was spinning around for 30 seconds.
Okay.
Dennis Hopper said, I'll just take 10. You know what I
Okay.
mean? So there we have him. But and he's actually one of the kids' dad on the team. And his son gets really upset, because there's a scene where he's like, comes into the diner, and he's like, hey, he's whispering, and he's asking for something. He's like, sure, and his son's, he didn't see his son was sitting at a booth behind him. He's like, give it back. He's like, oh, I just need, he's like, give it back. He's like, I'm sorry, sir, or whatever. And he's like, let's go. And he takes his dad out. So when all this is happening, Gene Hackman decides, hey, I need to invest in this guy. This guy,
that's a great dynamic too between those guys. The understanding of needing a second chance. Obviously, Coach Norman Dale understood that, and he invested his time and energy. That's a great part of the movie. A real, a personalized part of the movie that makes it so great.
I like how, because as Norman Dale got a second chance, he's passing that on to Dennis Hopper, a shooter, if you will.
Yeah.
And he, when he goes to his house and he goes up there and Dennis Hopper's with the gun, who's on my property?
Right.
He's like, look, I understand you have a great basketball mind. You know everything about basketball. He's like, I need you to come work with me. I want you. He's like, but there's one condition. He's like, you got to be sober. We can't have you out there embarrassing your son. So you can tell the first day he comes into the game, he's got his shirt tie and he comes a little lady shaking.
He's got the shakes.
And he's got a headache or whatever. He's like,
Right.
And so you can tell by his son looking at him, like, what are you doing? And the coach is like, look, just focus. I got this. And then that brings us to a famous scene where Gene Hackman gets up and he just starts yelling at the ref. He's like, "Kick me out."
He's testing Shooter in the process by getting himself thrown out of the game.
I love it so much. He's like, "Kick me out of the game." He's like, "What?" He's like, "Just kick me out of the game."
Right.
He's like, "Oh, all right." He's like, "You're out of here." And Dennis Hopper's like, "What? I can't. What?" And he comes over and he takes that little leather playbook or whatever he had, and he hands it to him. He's like, you need to bring us again. Yeah, he's like, done again. You need to bring us home or whatever.
Right.
And so you can see him. He's got the look of shock. So one of the players says, "Hey, I think I can. We should double team with him." He's like, "Yeah, that's a good idea." And then you can see he's starting to get his wheels going again. And I think that moment was critical for the rest of the movie because it shows his son that his son even opened up then, and they started gelling as a team. So they're winning games now at this point of the movie. So they're really got something going. And, you would see Dennis Hopper getting his head dunked into the water all because he'd fall back into stuff, But there comes a time when he gets sent to rehab. And I think that's a staggering statement because if anybody listening to this is struggling with that, don't be afraid to get help. It's not only affecting you, it's affecting your family, even though you don't see it. So I wanted to throw that little public service announcement out there. But
it's a good one.
But this time, his son and him have bonded. And you can see that as they're going through the rest of the series. But we finally get up to the game. I don't remember if it's a playoff game yet or not, but basically, they get in a fight, and one guy gets shoved through like the trophy case. His shoulder is bleeding, so Ollie has to come into the game, right? So they foul Ollie, and Ollie's basically just the equipment manager, he goes to the line to win the game with free throws, right? So he gets up there and he does the granny shot, misses or whatever, and then one guy walks up to him and he's like, "I didn't know they grew him so little down on the farm," or whatever. You just wanted to go through the screen and punch that guy.
Reggie Miller used to do that a lot.
Oh, yeah.
Maybe he got it from the movie.
Right. It's him and Spike Lee. I mean, we could just do a whole series on that. So then Ollie gets up there and he makes the shot, the granny style, and everybody just goes crazy. So now we're getting into the playoff time, right? So one thing I always thought was cool was it would show them winning. You see the coaches having a good time. The team's having a good time. You see them going down the road with like a bandwagon of people following the bus. You know what I mean? They're actually traveling the state with them.
Yeah.
So then, we have the one guy on the team. They're playing, and remember he gets down there on the floor and starts praying.
Strap.
Yeah. He gets down there and he starts praying.
He's the son of a minister who owned the bus.
Right.
And
they would change
every year they would paint the bus for basketball season. Right.
So he would, he'd get down there and Coach Normandale's like, strap. And he's like, he does this all the time, Coach. So, he goes up, he's like, well, is he going to be ready for the game? He's like, maybe. Right. So finally you see Ollie's like, Ollie, you're going to the game. He's like, well, and finally Strap runs out. He's like, thank you. So it's just so much in this movie is pertaining to families.
Yeah, just the relational dynamic between Shooter and his son, and then Coach Dale and Shooter, and
then you have
the importance of relationships. And we didn't even touch
the lady that was watching Jimmy.
Myra Fleener, right?
So they had a relationship too, but then Normandale, I think him and them kind of respected him too there too.
Right.
So now we come down to the championship game, right?
Wow, well, already?
Not yet, but I can't remember exactly in the movie where this happens. But Shooter goes into rehab, and I remember him, listening on the radio. He's like, "Son, I want to do this. I want to get better." And you see him like getting dried out or whatever, and you hear him turn on the radio. I think it might be like the semifinal game, and they're playing and they end up winning or whatever. And you see him jumping on the bed like, "Oh, we're going to the state finals. We're going to the state finals." And then you see his son come and visit him while he's there. And he said, "We're going to win this for you, Dad."
Yeah, that's a great scene.
Yeah, I mean it's moving. You know what I mean?
But I had heard or read somewhere where they actually had written Shooter as coming out of rehab and then actually being at the game. I don't know if it was Anspaugh or Pizzo that had written that in, but then they decided, no, we're going to focus. They took it out and left him in rehab because they felt like that was more important to show that aspect of him actually understanding that him being in rehab and sort of restoring his family was more important than the game.
And I thought that was amazing.
That was great. That was really putting the importance on where it should have been.
Right. Go ahead. Do you have any other things over there in your notes?
No. That was just something that just came to my mind when you were bringing up the final game. No team had ever made it that far, which is true. They are the smallest team in the Milan Miracle section of my notes. They're the smallest team, the smallest school, with an enrollment of 161. Milan was the smallest school to ever win a single-class state basketball. And a lot of others, Indiana was late to the game as far as class basketball. We had class football and other sports, but really that was what made Indiana high school basketball so great, just from a historical perspective, was the fact that it was single class all the way up until 1997. So it was really a David versus Goliath for a lot of years, and that's what made the Milan Miracle so great. Was this was something that was accomplished that, was unheard of or unthought of, that a team that small, from a school that small, but could defeat a much bigger school with a larger enrollment. And I just really thought the movie in general, it captured that aspect of Indiana basketball, the essence of it. I thought that was really, really great.
Yeah, like the underdog feel.
Sure, that's a great story, and that plays in a lot of sports movies, and and Rudy as well. I mean, that's a large theme in that movie as well. But I really enjoyed that part of it, and that's what makes it so compelling. That's why there are towns with only 1,100 people, but they have a gym that seats 5,000 people. They're all over places like that in the state, where the town's population is 1/5 or half of the capacity at their gyms.
Right, and I thought it was something else that was interesting. If you remember when Normandale first gets there, they say, well, is there only how many boys are here to play basketball? He's like, well, there's 64 people. He's like, boys? He's like, no, in the entire school.
Right.
But what he didn't understand is that those boys were actually working on the farm, the other parts of the year. They were actually farm hands. And I thought that was interesting that he could take a group of them and put them all together, because if you look at them, they weren't the most talented people. What I mean? But they came together as a team, and I think that's team play is better than a single person.
Yeah, that's another good theme in the movie,
right?
Too, yeah.
So now we get to the championship game. All right, I think it's about time to get there. Yeah. Unless you have any other side things before we go.
No, I've got tons of stuff, but
go for it. No,
you go ahead. That's a good place to start.
Okay, well, we'll start
launching
here.
point with the championship game.
So we've made it to the championship game. Now, for those of you that haven't watched, a spoiler alert, they're in the championship game. Okay, well, I think we've given a lot away. So they're in the championship game, and the first thing Normandale does is when he gets off the bus and he takes them into the gym, and they're all like, whoa, because this stadium seats way more than anything they've ever seen.
Hinkle Fieldhouse at the time,
which
Butler
is Butler
Fieldhouse now.
Right. So what I really like about this is he had one of the guys puts Ollie on his back, and he gets the tape measure, and they measure from here to here. He's like, and what's that? And he gives them the thing. He's like, huh. And then he measures, I think, to the free throw line. And he says, what's that? And they tell him 15 feet. And he's like, you see, this is the exact same as yours back home. He said, it's just, you got to block out these people. He's like, there's going to be a lot of people here. So I like that perspective that he took them in there and said, look, it's the same. It may just be a bigger stage, but it's the exact same of what you're used to. And for this scene, when they... After that, when they go and they're getting prepared, Coach Normandale delivers one of the best speeches I've ever heard. And I am about ready to throw this in here because I didn't want to cut this out, because once you hear this, it really makes you interested in whatever from the thing. So we'll go ahead and put this in here right now so you give this a listen.
There's a tradition in tournament play to not talk about the next step until you've climbed the one in front of you. I'm sure going to the state finals is beyond your wildest dreams, so let's just keep it right there. Forget about the crowds, the size of the school, their fancy uniforms, and remember what got you here. Focus on the fundamentals that we've gone over time and time again. And most important, don't get caught up thinking about winning or losing this game. If you put your effort and concentration into playing to your potential, to be the best that you can be, I don't care what the scoreboard says, at the end of the game, in my book, we're going to be winners. Okay?
So there you have it. If that doesn't fire you up, I don't know what will.
Yeah, I don't know if you have blood coursing through your veins.
Right, pumping. I'm ready to go take on the world.
Right.
So then we start the game, and man, they're just not really into it. They're getting pretty much hammered. You know what I mean?
A lot of back and forth.
Right.
Yeah, and they are down early in the game, but I've got a note here. We'll come to the glorious
finish.
The finish of the game, which is the best part of the movie. Obviously, the apex, the crescendo of the movie itself.
Yeah, I've got something over here about that too. But Jimmy Chitwood in this scores at least 26 of Hickory's 42 points in the championship game.
Okay, I never.
Even though in the real life, I had to hear that when
Bobby Plump.
Yeah,
got his stat line.
Well, what I'm saying is the final score was only 32-30.
Right. That actually leads me to my note.
Well, go for it.
The coach, Coach Wood, the Milan's coach, he was really notorious or famous for what he called the cat and mouse game, which is what we call today probably we probably would call it a four corners basketball. And obviously there's no shot clock in high school basketball, so a lot of difficult. If you were playing a difficult opponent, it was really a game of keep away and run out the clock.
Right.
So in the real life game, Bobby Plump, who's played by Jimmy Chitwood, Bobby Plump actually held the ball for over 4 minutes before shooting that last final winning shot, which doesn't make for good cinema. So obviously they changed it up a little bit from the actual story, but yeah, that wouldn't have been a very exciting ending if we just watched 4 minutes of him holding the ball. But I thought that was interesting, and it was the actual game was a really low scoring affair,
right?
32-30, like you mentioned before.
So one thing about that is the Travelers who sung the national anthem, they never auditioned for it. It was that night. They weren't even in the script. It was that night that no one had heard them sing the national anthem, and it was filmed all in one take that very first time on that night.
I didn't know that.
Yeah, I thought that was a very interesting.
So the quartet that sang the national anthem,
the Travelers.
Okay,
yep. And then during the final. So I thought that was a really interesting thing. Before we got too further, I want to make sure we mentioned them. One thing is that the filmmakers had trouble filling up Hinkle Fieldhouse with extras for the final game.
I find that surprising.
I remember something when I was a kid saying, "Hey, we need people to come out here, or whatever." But they needed more people around. They had to move people around for different shooting angles. You know what I mean? And they also, they want to make sure people had the 1950s hairstyle and their clothing was appropriate. Sure. You know what I mean? So I thought that was really interesting. So here you are. You're down in the final. You're down to the final minute of the game, and in the movie, it's thrilling. Actually, it might be in a few seconds. And I think there's like 9 seconds left, if I remember right. I can't remember. It's been I seen it about 2 weeks ago. But they go over to the bench. They call timeout, and shooters are
best scene in the movie.
Yeah, and he's like, I think we're going to run the picket fence. And he tells the other guy that he's going to shoot the ball. He's like, they're doubling Jimmy. We want you to shoot the ball. And then you just see the whole team just deflated, like, whew. And he's like,
what's the matter with you guys?
What's wrong with you guys? And then they look at Jimmy. He's like, I'll make it, coach.
One of the best 3 lines that he had is "I'll make it." That's one of the great lines. It's highly motivational and very emotional.
So when he gets the ball, you are just, boy, the tension there. You can cut it with a knife. You're on the edge of the seat.
Right.
And then they take off with whatever time's left, and he goes up and shoots the ball. Now, an interesting fact is that they said that they told the guy that was playing Jimmy Chitwood, they said, look, once you shoot the ball, make it or miss it, people are going to storm the court because we're going to do this. We have people storming the court because it's the final shot of the game. Luckily, he made the shot.
Wow.
Because they had all these people rush the floor, you know what I mean? And you see all the motions, people crying, and Dennis Hopper's jumping on his bed. We did it! We did it!
That's another great scene at the end of the movie, one of my favorites, where the coaches come together and congratulate one another, and you really kind of have a conversation in the middle of the court.
Well, not only that.
That's just mutual respect for one another. Yeah, that's a great
not only that, but when
scene.
he makes that shot, you see the other team just devastated.
Oh, yeah.
I mean,
absolutely.
The thrill of victory, the agony of defeat.
Right.
And you can just see, that's how much that basketball means to the state of Indiana.
Right.
It just
and to those players, sure.
Right?
Yeah.
So, so now that you got anything else?
Well, just post game and the actual Milan Miracle. there were 40,000 people that descended on the small town of Milan, who had a population of 1,150 at the time.
Wow.
The next day, as they returned home from Indianapolis, on State Road 101, which leads into Milan, the line spanned 13 miles of people there to congratulate them on winning the state championship. I thought that was.
I wonder what that
really,
did for the old,
wow.
The little town.
Can you imagine? Like, that's more. That would just be something that you would never forget the rest of your life, right. Obviously.
And you got to remember, this is a time where there was no social media. There hardly was any TV. I don't even know if there was TV, but as far as the radio is all they had. So the exposure that they got just from the radio, there wasn't, maybe
sure.
the newspaper the next day or whatever would put it out. But now you can watch like any ball game on your phone if you want. You know what I mean?
It's easy access, sure.
Right.
But since then, fewer than half of the 751 schools entered in the 1954 tournament exist today. That's really interesting to think about. There's less than half of the 750. With increased urbanization and suburbanization throughout the state, the schools became much larger. Obviously, they consolidated, and there aren't those small town schools like there were back then. So,
right, and I think that's part of the draw to even today to the NCAA tournament. When you get them
sure.
underdoggers.
Yeah.
And they're, you know what I mean, and they get a chance to go up against the big dogs. They're on actual TV. That would never have happened if they didn't.
The one shining moment, that has a lot of pull, and people watch it in mass every March because of that.
Right.
That feeling, that the Milan story, the Hoosiers story,
right.
On a college platform, sure.
Yeah, I think it's fantastic. So Eric, why don't you go ahead and break down this movie for me? Give me your thoughts.
Well, I think you know what I think of the movie.
But I know, but what does the audience know?
I definitely would recommend it. Not for me personally. Obviously, I'm going to go out there and say I'm biased because I love the game of basketball. I have since I was very young. Obviously, I live in a state where it's played all the time. It's around. But I mean, that wouldn't be the only reason I would watch the movie. There are great storylines woven throughout the entire movie. It's a great inspirational movie. It's emotional at times. It has a lot of great themes of family and teamwork and hard work and discipline, and that's just a couple. And then really in Dennis Hopper's portrayal and the whole how alcoholism affected his family and how he worked to come back from that. It's a great story of redemption. I give it 5 stars, obviously. Not just from the basketball aspect. I mean, we could talk about that all day, but the movie itself, I just thought they did a great job, and I think that's why it's always near the top on sports movies.
And what I love about this movie is everything that you said too, but also that it's a pretty clean movie. I don't know if there's hardly anything in it. Maybe one cuss word, maybe 2.
It just shows to show that if you have a great story,
you don't need
to fill it with
all that other stuff.
Yeah.
And that's one thing that I always like to. And one thing I remember is those of you that are older like us, I remember McDonald's. There was one summer season or whatever where you could get 4 VHS movies. When you ordered a large meal or whatever. One of them was Hoosiers.
Okay.
One of them was like Puff the Magic Dragon. One of them was something else. There was like 2 other ones. But this was one that I got on VHS. I wore that thing down, you know what I mean?
Yeah.
And the music. The music, just every time I hear it, you just start getting pumped. You start thinking about
Right. Now, did you see the movie in the movies back then?
No.
Because I saw it on VHS for the first time. I never saw it actually in the theater.
The problem with me is when I was really young, I was a baseball fan.
Yeah.
That was my first love.
That's why I started out playing baseball.
And then about junior, we were on the same baseball team too, if I remember back in
we played a lot of sports teams together.
And then we went to basketball. But see what did it for me is baseball had that strike, and it ruined me. You know what I mean?
Right.
So then I started liking basketball, junior high through / high school, and then you come to the realization of football, and you're like, where has this been all my life? I mean, I'd watched football, you know what I mean? But yeah,
the movie itself was
it's like watching today's NBA. I can barely do it, just because the rules have changed. They don't call fouls or traveling and all that. I can barely stand to watch it. And where has all the shooters gone? I mean, yeah, you have Steph Curry and Klay Thompson, you know what I mean? But I mean, and you don't really have rivals anymore. Like when we would watch it, Reggie Miller versus the Knicks, Pacers and Knicks, that was something you're going to watch. And then when they do the stupid, they had the brawl in Detroit, it just kind of turned me off. You know what I mean? But then back to this movie. Yeah, I could go on a tangent for a while. But,
that's all right.
But this movie is fantastic. Even though Gene Hackman didn't want nothing to do with this movie, I think he did an outstanding performance in this movie too. Yeah. And then, of course, Dennis Hopper. One thing also, all the people in this movie, all the players, were from Indiana, except for one, which was the one that played Dennis Hopper's son. He was an actual actor.
The players, you mean?
They were actually basketball players.
I read
too.
something somewhere too. Sorry, I didn't mean to cut in.
No, you're good.
But they had to kind of unteach the guy, the 80s guys. It was like a large casting call for basketball player type guys in the state of Indiana. And, they come into the audition and they're going behind the back and doing all these really, more modern moves. And they had to tone it down.
Yeah, they were like, we don't want any between the legs.
Yeah, you
have
to play like a 1950s player, and a lot of the skills were at a higher level, obviously in the 80s than in the 50s, and so they had to sort of tone it down for those guys and tell them, all right, look, you got to do it this way so that it looks authentic.
Well, they also said that the style back in the 50s or whatever was one that they would shoot off one leg.
Uh-huh.
You know what I mean? A lot of people were used to that.
Shot, right?
Right. So. If you haven't seen this movie, definitely give it a look. It's definitely one of my favorite sports movies. Although you need to watch out Pride of the Yankees from the last episode because that stuck with me. I mean, it is really fantastic. But this movie resonates for me from when I was a kid.
Right.
And anytime it's on, I'll just sit down and be like, "Wow, here we go." I'm not paying any attention to anything else when this is on. When I get a chance to see it, so if you don't own this movie, definitely buy it. You will not regret it. And if you haven't seen it, and you always want to know what a Hoosier was, watch that movie. Then you'll start to understand what a Hoosier really is.
Sure.
Well, thanks, Eric, for coming on.
Thank you.
If you ever want
the opportunity.
If you ever want to come back, door's always open. Talk some more sports movies. Maybe have you sit in with Terrence, and we'll do some crazy movies.
Okay.
Maybe have you on a real talk.
Okay.
It'd be some fun. Get your information too. So I think this episode's coming to a close, and that's a wrap. And
cut.